you.
It must have been a blessed time for you as a young actress just breaking into movies, because not only did you have the chance to work with Olivier, but also there was this legendary story that Chaplin plucked you to play a female lead in his film.
True.
You know, it probably wouldn't happen today. How old were you? 18, 19, 20?
I was 19. Well, it wouldn't happen ever. I don't know how it happened to me. To me, it still seems a complete miracle that this pretty well unknown, I was playing a nice part in the West End in a play, but unknown actress came to his attention at all. And it was, like all things, strange, serendipitous, I believe, maybe good. Friend of Chaplin's saw me in this play. Chaplin was looking for someone like me, small because he wasn't exactly tall, English preferably, who could act a bit, who could give the impression of being a dancer. And also when I sent the photographs that he asked me to send to him, I did there at that time very striking, or we did to each other, resemblance to Una Chaplin, his wife. And I think that kind of clinched it, and then he asked me over to make a film test with him. You know, there's nobody, frankly. I was.
I mean, he had a very, I won't say peculiar way of working, but he had a very specific way of working, didn't he, in terms of directing you. Can you recall what that was?
Directing everyone.
Really?
He'd, after all, written the script, he was directing it, he indeed, he knew from... Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Not all of us.
Not all of you. That's it. Okay. He knew from the beginning what he wanted from everybody,
Yeah.
and was very particular in telling you. And as far as I was concerned, that was fine, because I absolutely worshipped him and did everything he said. Put your hand here, look up, look there, say the line, look down. It was fine. I wouldn't like that now, but there's other times.
And Olivier was, the Olivier film was a few years later, it was 3 or 4 years later.
Yes.
54, 55. Olivier came from a rather different background and a very different director. And I wonder what, good evening, James. I wonder what the differences between them were, because...
Night and day. I mean, I don't remember Olivier giving me any inflections, or... We just acted together, quite honestly. And there must have been more to it than that. But I don't remember any specific direction from him.
So he allowed you to act, he allowed you to do the
Yes,
thing with it?
yes. And I think, you know, if Chaplin had, I wouldn't have been as good, but I would have seemed less mannered. There are times when I seem mannered in a way that I can hear his voice saying, do that line like that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But that's what he did.
You were a complete newcomer to film when you did Chaplin. You did one film before that. But you had a degree of experience in theatre. And I wondered how you came to be an actress. Where did the calling come from for you?
I know that as far as I can remember, that was what I wanted. My aunt was an actress, quite a famous stage actress, yeah. In the 30s. She had a very prominent career, but very brief, because she was ill and put an end to it. But Mary grew, my aunt was very much an influence on me. I don't think that because of Mary I wanted to be an actress. I wanted to be an actress because of Snow White. You know, much more of that, and the movies that I'd seen, and the romantic stories that I'd read, and I suppose I wanted to enact them. I wanted to bring these romantic stories to life, more than I had any clear idea of being an actress.
And were you influenced by Shakespeare, by the classics?
Yes.
What was it that made you want to play Juliet, to play Ophelia, to play...
My mother had read to me always Shakespeare. And though I didn't know when I was very young, I didn't understand it, I loved the cadence of the words. And then, I did see the film of Romeo and Juliet with Norma Shearer and Leslie Howard, who were both obviously much, much too old, but I didn't know that. And then I started to make myself Juliet dresses, Juliet caps, and I was hooked.
How old would you be when you were seeing that?
9, 8.
Wow. So he was in there. He was in the head and in the heart.
In there. I was showing off. I was a very shy child, socially. But if I could just do a poem or dance around or do something silly, I was completely confident.
And were you always confident even when you were starting out as an actress? Could you take yourself onto the stage and just deliver?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought I could. I mean, I don't know whether I really could, but I just was supremely self-confident and probably arrogant.
Well, you've said that you were very ambitious. I mean,
I was very ambitious.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
No.
And I think you were interviewed in the early 50s saying that the one thing that you wanted to achieve in life was to be a serious actress.
Oh.
And you were doing some very heavy roles, and on theatre and on film, when you were only 21, 22, 23, and it happened very quickly for you.
It happened very quickly, very easily. I thought that's the way it happens. Seemed fine to me. I didn't ask many questions. Yes, I wanted to be a serious actress. And my mother had always instilled in me, you know, only work with the best. Better to do a small part, you know, with fine people than run-of-the-mill stuff.
Yeah. Well, we have a clip which I want to drop in very early in the interview, Simon, if it's ready, from the King's speech. And I talked to Claire a couple of weeks ago while we were planning this, and did a long interview. And I asked about King's speech, and you said, very particularly, it wasn't much of a part, but there were 3 reasons why I wanted to do it. One was the director, because she'd seen some of his work. The other 2 reasons were 2 rather handsome men, one being Colin Firth, the other one being Guy Pearce, because they played your sons.
That's right. I wasn't going to miss that.
Does it feel in any way odd that, and also, Claire has just celebrated a significant birthday. This lovely lady was 80 in February. Congratulations. Does it feel in any way odd for you that all these years later, that you're still making movies, you're still in demand, you're still acting, you're still doing the job?
I don't know. I never, well, I suppose you never think you're going to get old, you know. I thought things would just go on as they were. Well, they've gone on, but certainly not as they were. How could they? It never occurred to me to retire. There have been moments when I thought I had been retired. But if the chance comes along, I'll take it.
Sure. Well, we can look at it down here, Claire. We've got a clip from King's speech, and this is the death of the King. When you're given a part such as Juliet or Ophelia, one of the classics, you can bring your own interpretation to it because the character never lived. So it's entirely you. Playing someone like Queen Mary, for instance, a historical figure, still within living memory, is there an added obligation or an added challenge to get it right? And what did you base it on?
I didn't have much time to base it on anything. I'd actually, believe it or not, met Queen Mary, or was presented, or whatever you are.
Yeah.
And I remembered her as being this, I remember her wig, which indeed we saw. And I remember her being this very rigid figure. I remember that, her stance. And then on YouTube, which must be the greatest thing for actors ever, there were some clips of her, and also one of her speaking. And I was interested that she didn't have, you know, the way the Queen doesn't talk like that so much now, but the lady used to speak like that. She didn't have that at all.
Oh, really?
She had open vowels, and good, you know, speech.
Yeah.
So I didn't have much to base it on, quite honestly. I knew she was 6 foot tall. It's a bit of a problem for me. And I tried to, I guess, to think like her. I don't know how those people think, but it's something so thwarted and warped and inhuman, and yet underneath it they had to have had some human feelings. I tried. There wasn't much given.
What kind of an actor are you? I mean, are you, without using the kind of the method word, I mean, how do you kind of ingest a character? What is it that you do to deliver that character on stage or on screen or telly or radio?
I hate to say it.
Can you analyse it like that?
I can't analyse it, and I trust to luck. I hope that when I open my mouth, the right voice will come out.
Yeah.
It sounds kind of silly. But yes, if I were like Queen Mary, which I couldn't do, but for instance, Catherine of Aragon, where I had a lot of time to prepare, then I did. I went to the National Portrait Gallery, I read a splendid book about her, about Henry VIII, obviously, and one could do a lot of work. I really don't know, with parts that I've really been pleased with myself in. I mean, I'm talking about theatre now. Certainly, Streetcar Named Desire, or The Doll's House. It was because I was very close to the edge of the character, yeah, and understood it internally.
You told me that you felt that your performance as Blanche Dubois was the best thing you'd ever done.
It was the best thing I've ever done.
And you know, obviously not an easy part to play. I mean, is it something in you as the actor that's drawn to those difficult roles?
Clearly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because there's more challenge there, there's more opportunity.
There's more complication. I'm not interested in uncomplicated people.
So you don't. I mean, obviously you don't want it to be easy. You want to be challenged,
yeah,
in doing the job. And is that the same in? Sorry, is that the same in? That's sort of rude, isn't it? Is it the same in film and TV as it is in the theatre?
It depends. First of all, in film, yes, when I was young, I had a choice.
Yeah.
Now, if something comes along, like Queen Mary, I didn't think that was going to be anything very much. It turned out that it was, because the film was so important. But you don't have the choice that you have in the theatre. I've certainly always been better when I've played. And when you think of it, actually, the parts that I have been fairly good in were also rather complicated people.
Would you have shied away from the kind of fluffy roles? I mean,
it wasn't me.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's often this mode of thinking, particularly, it's very easy to pick on the Americans, but particularly among American actors, they get known for doing a certain thing, and suddenly they want to explore themselves, and they want to be challenged, and the comedian wants to play a tragic role, etc.
Fine.
You know, but sometimes it doesn't fit, does it?
Wouldn't have fitted me. I'd like to have played perhaps a romantic comedy. In fact, I would like to have played romantic comedy, and I could have done. But that's the limit of how far I think. I don't think that I have a great gift for the light. I don't know, I've never done it.
Well, I asked you over the phone if you'd ever considered yourself to be a character actor, and you said no, not at all. Is that because you're not comfortable doing that kind of stuff? Or?
Lack of skill, I think. I mean, I guess that is a character role. So I don't know what a character actor is in that case. So I don't know if I can do it or not. But I find it very difficult, truly, to do something that has no echo in me.
When you talked about being an ambitious young actress, what were the ambitions that you had? I mean, was it to tackle all the significant Shakespearean female roles? Did you have a hit list of the things that you wanted to play?
Yeah.
Really?
I did.
And did you manage to achieve pretty much all of it?
Pretty well. pretty well. I never played Cleopatra, and I think I could have had a go at that. I didn't play Lady Macbeth, and I'm not sure that I would have been all that good. It's very difficult. But I also I was tremendously drawn to French theatre, German theatre.
Yeah.
And in fact, a lot of the plays that I did were translations. But many things I would like to have done. For example, Dialogue of the Carmelites, which is, hate to tell you, great opera.
I'm not an opera fan, you know that.
I know. But it was a play before that by Bernanos, and I had seen it in France. It was a fantastically moving play. True, a story about nuns who were executed in the Revolution. They came back together when they were threatened with death, instead of dispersing into the countryside, and they were killed. And it was incredibly moving, and I very much wanted to do it, and I asked two great actresses, Dorothy Tutin, if she would play Sister Constance, and Irene Worth, if she would play the Mother Superior. We had, myself, we had three pretty good names. Nobody was even remotely interested. In fact, it's never been done here as a play. But it's that kind of thing. I was very high-minded, and I wanted to do interesting things.
How much do you think you've evolved as an actress over time? I mean, again, when we were talking the other week, I asked you if you recognise the young girl whose voice comes back over the years, and you said you do recognise her, you're rather fond of her.
I'm fond of her, but I have to say I think she's a bit dated. I was watching Richard III, in which I had thought I was extremely good. There's a certain amount of vocal carrying on that would not be accepted today.
But is Olivier dated as well?
I can't answer. Not to me.
Not to me,
but to my daughter. Said, oh, he's an old ham. I said, but you've never seen him on the stage. He was the greatest actor you've ever seen. You know, things change. They have to.
You were blessed with some phenomenal opportunities in terms of working with leading men from the 40s through to the present day. James Mason, I think, was your first leading man, a Yorkshire lad.
Yes.
Excuse me. Olivier, Yul Brynner, Richard Burton, Anthony Quinn, Paul Newman, Paul Schofield, Rod Steiger, who you married, of course, Tony Hopkins, etc. And I wonder if you would indulge us briefly with your memories of some of them, because it was a huge, these were the biggest stars of their time.
Yes.
And all of them very different.
Yes, true. A rundown of all of them?
Yeah. Yul Brynner, for instance.
Brynner? Oh, he was such an incredible personality. I don't know how good an actor he was.
He was always Yul, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was always Yul, but Yul was something.
Yeah.
He was something. I mean, he was the most magnetic man I think I've ever met. And he played the guitar. He spoke all these languages. He said he was a gypsy. I don't know if he was a gypsy, doesn't matter. He was just altogether fascinating, and he brought that onto the screen. And of course, his superb face.
Yeah. You made two films with him.
Yes.
Brothers Karamazov and
The Buccaneer.
Bonnie Brown and The Buccaneer, which I think is a terrific film. Yul Brynner was very much in his time, I think. The career kind of petered out fairly early on. But as the star of the 1950s, he was pretty much immense, wasn't he?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Steiger. Now, I know that you were married to Rod Steiger, and one assumes that you were very different types of actors.
Yes, we were.
Rod was a method man, I think.
Rod was immensely courageous in a way that I never was. And I have become now, because there's not so much on the line.
Sure.
But I remember very distinctly, we did a film called 3 into 2 Worlds Ago, and the director was Peter Hall, and my mother was played by Peggy Ashcroft. And so Peggy Ashcroft and myself were in the scene somewhere or other, and Peter Hall was directing it. It was quite an audience, I think, and Rod overacted to a point that we were all kind of stunned. And Peter Hall said to me, "Is there anything you can do?" I said, "No, don't ask me." And then he refined it, and then he refined it, and then he refined it. He was courageous in that way. He would, as we say now, go for it, that's for sure.
Was he, I mean, there were stories about Olivier when he was on stage, when he could kind of unleash the lion's breath, as they call it. He just whoosh, he's come up and people would be, because there was a power there, there was a palpable power in the man. And I'm assuming that with people like, with people like Rod Steiger, with people like Paul Newman as well, that particularly the American actors, there was a degree of that with them. Did you ever experience that?
You mean that it was deliberate?
Well, like that kind of power, that kind of the energy of their acting.
Well, Rod certainly had it. Newman did something else. I mean, it was wonderful, but it was with charm and immense grace and handsomeness and skill. Well, Rod was a powerful actor, and his great heroes were Emil Jannings, Paul Mooney, Lee Jacob. He came from a different place than me.
Sure.
But we wanted kind of the same things. We wanted excellence.
Did your styles of, I'm not straying into personal things, but did your styles of acting merge, or did they clash?
We only did one play together, Rashomon, where we met. I would say they clashed then. He didn't understand what I was doing, and I found what he was doing perhaps too much. I think we were both wrong. The two films we made together was fine, but that was much later.
Yeah.
We'd been together 9 years or so by then. And the film was his medium, after all. And the theatre was not. He was very wonderful in the theatre, but it was not his medium, and it was mine at that time. So I felt that I knew what I was doing, and that what he was doing was rather bizarre. Well, maybe it was, but it was extremely good.
You also worked with Anthony Hopkins, Ralph Richardson on A Doll's House, which we're playing we have played in the film festival.
Yeah.
Hopkins at that point was just coming through, really. He'd been in the theatre for a while, but he was just breaking through in the film. The key scene where he erupts and insults you, insults the character of Nora, and then comes down, and there's already been this twist in your character, this kind of women's lib moment, is a wonderful piece of theatre on screen, a bit like the Olivier film. And I wondered, you were working with Hopkins when he was kind of unknown, really.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't
on film, though.
In filmmaking, he was very known to me from theatre.
Right.
He'd also played. My brother's a very fine film editor, and John had edited A Lion in Winter, in which Hopkins made his debut, I think, and was quite clearly something to be reckoned with. I thought he was an equal in every way and more.
The actor that I wanted to go on to, we've got a clip briefly of him, is Burton. You worked with him in the theatre, you made 3 films with him over time. The one that we're going to look at is Look Back in Anger, which was the new style of play that was coming through the kitchen sink. Experience at the back end of the 50s. Tony Richardson directing, who was a Bradford lad, who was a Bradford lad.
Was he?
Not far from here.
Yeah.
And I wanted to talk a little bit about that because Burton seemed to absorb movies just as he absorbed theatre. But yet he seemed, some people say, he was slightly out of place in that film, playing Jimmy Porter. He was not quite the right casting. I'm not too sure what to believe about that. I wondered what your take on
I
this.
thought it was one of his best ever performances. I thought he was absolutely superb. He thought he was too old.
Yeah.
He was over, it was 32 maybe, 34, I don't know, something. And we were all just under 30, 28. And he always said, I'm too old for this part, but he wasn't. He was wonderful in it, I thought. And all that hatred that he carried in him, and anger that he carried in him, he used so wonderfully.
And there's a parallel to something like Richard III. You've got Olivier turning a Shakespeare play into a movie. Here you've got Tony Richardson turning a John Osborne play into a movie. Two very different subjects, and only about 4 years apart, really. Was there a palpable shift, do you think? Were the times are changing, both in the theatre and with what we're watching on the screen?
And I was damn lucky to be included in it, because I had not worked at the Royal Court Theatre, where all these wonderful new plays were coming from.
Yeah.
And I'd seen Look Back in Anger on the stage, and I thought it was amazing. But I was as usual, I did stupid things, and when I got the call, I said, no, I want to play the wife, not the I don't want to do it, which was insane for every possible reason, but apart from anything else, it had been written for Mary Ure. Mary Ure was perfect in it, and it was her husband's play, and she'd created the part, and what made me think that I could displace her, I don't know. Anyway, I did come to my senses and say, yes, I would very much like to do it. And of course, I realized it was a great chance for me to break out of the costume mold pretty well that I had been in. And it was. It was a wonderful role, and Tony Richardson really gave one complete freedom as a director. You know, you would say, because we did it in our house, you would say, Tony, do you think I should go over and pour a glass of water? Then, if you want to. And it was wonderfully releasing, you know?
Very free.
Yeah, free. I was free for the first time. And I think it truly is my first really adult performance.
On hoping, Simon, do we have the clip ready? We do. Can we play Look Back in Anger, please? This is you and Mary Ure. I won't ask whether making movies is fun, because work is work, but this one looks like it could have been a toughie. Was it a hard film to make, the subject matter, the emotion of it?
No, because there were only 4 of us really in it, and they needed, of course, but that was something different part. And we worked well together. Richard and I had known each other anyway for years. Mary had played the part. Gary Raymond is charming.
As Cliff. Yeah.
We were in a house. We filmed it in Stratford, not on Avon, Stratford, at Ebo. Yeah. And so we became part of it, really. Kind of lived it. We had some terrible arguments, I remember. I don't know what about. But when we filmed at night, about 3 o'clock in the morning, which is a very bad time. I remember the boys having terrible arguments, and Richard and I having terrible arguments. I really don't know what it was all about. I think it was really cooked up by the play.
Really? The 60s were a very busy time for you as well. You had the opportunity to do some big films that you, sorry, not the 60s, the 50s, back in the 50s, early 60s. You had the opportunity to do some big films that you took, certainly 2 that you mentioned to me. One being Elseed, one being Ben-Hur. Was it just circumstance that prevented you doing it, and do you regret it at all?
I regret it. In both, well, certainly Ben-Hur, I signed, as we say, to do Duel of Angels with Vivian Leigh.
Yeah.
And I'd love to have played that part in Ben-Hur. The film company tried to buy me out, but Agent Tennant wouldn't let me go, so that was that. Elseed, it meant being away from, I had a new baby, and it meant being away from home for 6 months. I don't think she was a baby, maybe she was starting school, I'm not sure what year it was, but...
Sid would be about 61, I think.
Yeah, she was 1. I'd love to have done it. I just felt I couldn't. I mean, well, the Ben-Hur decision was not mine to make. The Elsie decision, I suppose I could have worked it somehow. But I didn't. I'm sorry I wasn't. I love those great big, wonderful films.
And
Love seeing them.
the part that you would have played in Ben-Hur was played by Haya Harari,
Yes.
so it would have been Heston's sister.
No, his wife or
Heston's
lover,
wife.
whatever. Yeah.
And what about roles that you may have gone after and didn't get? I don't think that's an unfair question, but particularly in film, was there anything that you really wanted?
Oh, I'm sure there was. I'm not, I can't kind of, I think I've wiped them. Of course I must have been, is the answer. And Gene Simmons was always there, whom I adored in the end and became a great friend. But Gene was better known, more beautiful, and got some of the parts that I'd like to play.
Well, Gene was here on this stage in 2003, and we talked about Hamlet and Ophelia, which is one of the ones that you're referring to.
Yes, that's right, of course.
I mean, I would imagine that she got it because she was slightly older and she'd been in film.
Yes.
You were younger and hadn't done that much film.
No, I hadn't done anything. I was 16. You were quite right. Olivia chose Gene Simmons, had wanted Gene Simmons originally. It looked for a moment as though she couldn't do it because she was, I think it was Black Narcissus, or whatever it was,
Right.
you would know. And so he did look for an alternative girl. I was recommended to him by Robert Help.
Yeah.
And I met him, and I did a screen test with him, which was, I think, quite good. I don't know. And you know, I was a kid. I think he led me to believe I'd got the part, or maybe I thought that that's what I was hearing. And anyway, that was on a Thursday, and on the Monday, it was announced in the papers that Gene Simmons was doing it up for. But she was wonderful, he was right, I was too young, she was perfect. And I got to play it anyway on the stage twice.
6 years down the line, you were Lady Anne in Richard III, so he obviously remembered you.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe you got a better run. Some actors who come through theatre can be quite snooty about film. You don't seem to have ever been
God,
there.
no.
And certainly snooty about television. And you don't ever seem to be like that either. One of the high points of this year's programme is a BBC adaptation of Anna Karenina, which came out in about 60-61, with Claire as Anna and Sean Connery as Vronsky. And it's just recently been rediscovered and we were playing it, and we have, I hope, Simon, yes we do, we have a clip which has been rather hurriedly selected this afternoon. There's lots of other things going on, so I'm hoping this is a representative clip of the two.
I hope it's the right film. And I saw.
Have you seen that since you...
I haven't.
Really?
I haven't. It was directed by Rudolph Cartier, who was really, really, really good director of early television, with great delicacy and style. You know, there's no greater part. Well, there's Blanche Dubois, but there's not much greater part than Anna Karenina.
Why would you have been drawn to Anna as you were drawn to Blanche? What was it about her that you wanted to play?
I think I am drawn to self-destructive characters. I'm not, actually, but I'm drawn to the poetic darkness of those women.
It's a challenge of doing something that's other than you, I suppose, isn't it? Or are you on the edge of something like that? Is that what you're saying, are you? Kind of on the edge of these characters?
Well, I can see into them. I'm near enough.
Gosh. It looked like, moving swiftly on, it looked like it was shot like, it was shot as if you were doing a play. Long takes.
Was it? I didn't know it.
Right, okay. Well, certainly Cartier came through in the 1950s. He did a lot of really big, prestigious productions.
Yes, he did.
And this seems like it was one of them.
Yes.
Bizarre that the BBC could have lost it for 50 years. There we are.
Where did you find it?
Well, we can't claim credit for it. The BFI found it, British Film Institute, they played it last year. And it's just been re-released now onto DVD, and of course all the Sean Connery fans, yeah. We're going crazy for it. I want to open it up to questions. We do have roving mics. So you have to wave your arms about because I can't see a thing. We'll start with, end of the row here, and then gentleman in the middle, please.
Good evening, Mark.
It's working.
Can you hear me? Yes. Good evening, ma'am. Now, which screen role brought you the most joy?
Limelight. I mean, to work with, to have acted with Chaplin was something still beyond my wildest dreams. I truly can't believe that it happened to me. And of course, it was a wonderful role. It was a new life. It was actually made in his studios in Hollywood. People think it wasn't. It was very much his studios. I wasn't part of the Hollywood world at all. I knew nothing about it. I just knew Chaplin, his wife, his children, that magic world that I was transported into from, not that affluent a life in London. And I'm playing a dancer and this love affair with an older man. And it was altogether, it was dreamlike. It was such a wonderful experience. That was my favorite
part. Mum, you've talked about that you like the kind of darkness, and is it true that you knew Ken Russell when he was a ballet dancer, before he began making films?
No. He was?
It's because I spoke to Ken recently, and he says that he knew you at that time.
Yeah, but Ken doesn't matter as I know.
He's very ill, so he may have got it.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that, and I admire him enormously. Maybe I'm losing my marbles. I don't know. Sorry.
Could there have been a Limelight connection there or not? No? Maybe not. Another question? Okay. Gentleman down here.
I recently saw The Outrage, which I hadn't never had the chance to see before, which of course is, I didn't actually realise that you'd done Rashomon on stage, which of course is a Western sort of adaptation. And of course it's very interesting in that you got to play the same role from lots of different points of view, and I wonder what your recollections are of this role.
Well, it's a great challenge, actually. The first three, it's in 4 parts of a rape and a murder seen by 3 different people. The last being a farce, if you remember. The last part was very difficult. I don't think it was ever brought off well, either on stage or in the film. I can't quite answer that, really and truly, because what happens to the woman is seen from outside. So in fact, it's kind of the same story, except that it's her part in it is the same, but seen by somebody else in a different way. So I don't think that there was anything specific that I did to make the first 3 different. The 4th, as I say, never worked. It's a vague answer, I'm sorry.
I was very impressed. I think it holds up extremely well.
The first part, nobody saw it. It was a real dud. And I thought it was very good, a lot of it, but I don't know why, but it's just one of those things with some films, they just don't go anywhere, and it didn't.
Well, when we were talking the other week, I asked you whether you felt that when you took the role in King's Speech, whether you could see that was going to be the kind of hit that it's become. And you said, well, no, you can't. And it's the same thing with The Outrage, obviously.
No, The Outrage I thought was going to be a triumph. I thought I was going to get the Oscar, so how wrong I was. You have to believe in what you're doing when you do it, but you don't know where it's going to go.
Oh, sure, but and nobody has a crystal ball, so you can look into these things and see where they're going to go. So, something else that you mentioned in our conversation, that there came a time, which is the same for many actors, actresses, that you hit that magical 40, and certain roles are no longer available to you. And I've heard that from several actors or actresses over time, and often didn't really believe it, but it is something that happens, and it is something, it must be fairly
Painful.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Because really at 40, most women are at their best. You know, you look your best, you're full of energy, and but because of this word, it's not so much now. I mean, there are a lot of leading actresses that are over 40. But at that time, it was such a sexist time. You were considered kind of washed up, or, you know, start playing mothers, etc. Grandmothers as it is now, but whatever.
One of the films that you were very keen for us to play was a thing called Islands in the Stream.
Yeah.
Franklin Chapman's film, which we found a print of. And we have a clip from that in a minute. This is George C. Scott, who's another one of those great American
great
actors. Again, I think he had a theatre background.
Oh, yes.
And segued
Yeah,
into
definitely.
movies. Directed by the same man who directed in Patton. But a very, very different movie. Claire, when I talked to Claire and said, these are the films that we're proposing to play in your season, and we dropped a couple, and you said, what about Islands in the Stream? And this is a sequence involving George C. Scott as the artist living in the Caribbean, and his ex-wife has turned up, played by Claire, which he's not expecting. It's a rather awkward reunion. I like that because it has a theatricality to it. It's a two-hander, and he's giving you the opportunity to do your scene. He's not doing anything that takes the attention away from you. He's giving it, and I think it's an indication of a very, very fine, very confident actor to do that, and you do that too. I wonder if that's something that's innate in the job, or whether you learn it.
It's innate in the job. I mean, if you're going to, if you have a scene, an equal scene between two people, and you try to intrude in someone, you're going to ruin it. It never occurred to a good actor to do that.
And how does someone like George C. Scott stack up against, you know, the theatrical greats that you're talking about, the Paul Schofields?
Oh, he was an amazing actor.
Yeah.
He was an amazing actor. I didn't see him really on stage. I wasn't in America at the time, but powerful, wonderful actor.
And did you take, I mean, this is one of those films where you read the cast list and then it's and somebody, and it's and Claire Bloom. And the part, I mean, you come in, you deliver some bad news, I'll give the game away because we're playing the film, but you deliver some bad news to George C. Scott, and then you go away again. So there's this kind of impact when your character arrives. And that says a great deal for you, because you obviously had, you know, you could deliver that impact in only, what, 5 scenes in the film?
Yeah, they're awfully good scenes.
Absolutely. So it really is, it's almost like an extended cameo. It's
I suppose so.
a guest spot. But obviously it meant something to you. There was something in there that made
Well, I
you want
loved
to include
playing
it.
Hemingway Woman. It was very different to anything I'd done. And she's an interesting woman. She's really come, well, I don't want to ruin the film. She's come to deliver some seriously bad news.
Yeah. Hemingway, Shakespeare, Chekhov, Sophocles, you've pretty much done it all, haven't you? I mean, what's... Ibsen, yeah, Dostoevsky, Ibsen. Are there any roles that you still like to play?
No.
You've done it?
No, I haven't done it. I mean, if something came my way that was interesting, I'd certainly do it. But, I mean, you know, what roles exist for a woman my age? Frankly,
Well,
they
true.
don't.
True.
They don't.
Do we have any further questions? Oh, we have lots now. Okay. Well, let's take this side first, please, and then we'll come on. I'll let you choose a second.
I'm just wondering if you're disappointed that you didn't get the film role in Shadowlands that Deborah Winter got, and you performed so well on TV.
Well, no, I wasn't disappointed. I didn't expect to get it. It obviously had to go to someone who was a big name at the time, and I was not anymore, and someone younger. So, you know, disappointment isn't in it. I didn't see it, mind you.
It wasn't as good.
Okay, next one down. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
I come from an art background, and I was wondering, how important is costume in constructing a character?
I think it's very important, and you have to feel that the costume is absolutely correct. Yes, flattering up if it can be, more pretty, whatever it's supposed to be, but correct for the feeling of the scene. For example, in the streetcar, I pretty well was dressed in flowered chiffon, which made me feel light, move in a certain way, made me feel vulnerable. Whereas in the doll's house, it was very constricted, and you know, yes, it's extremely important, and it's extremely important, I think, to have a vision when you read a play and say yes, or a film and say yes, a vision of what you think you should present, and the costume is very much part of it.
And did you work with Mary Quant, or did you speak to her?
Yes, in The Haunting.
Oh, that must have been fabulous.
It was wonderful, and you know, she was the big designer then, and so influential. I love clothes anyway.
Beautiful.
And I enjoyed that. Constructing a character, you know, it's part of it.
Thank you very much.
And just as a very brief follow-on to that lady's question, have you ever been given the opportunity to be involved in the process of creating a costume so that you can maybe
Well, you
take
always
something
are.
from that?
You always are. I mean, you know, your input is there. And you're, I mean, this is a perfect circumstance. You're shown a sketch, the director has seen it, you like it, or you say, no, that's not how I see her at all.
Yeah.
And then you try to come to you know, something that is agreeable to everybody.
Okay. Tony, and then this gentleman here.
Good evening, Miss Bloom. It's wonderful to hear your reminiscences, and particularly about a period in Hollywood, because it's so seldom that we have the opportunity to talk to somebody who's actually worked with a couple of my own personal, and I think a lot of other people's very favourite directors, because we just don't come into contact with them. But the two films that you do with the two directors, I'd like to ask you your reminiscences of, were not generally regarded to be their best. Perhaps you can tell us a little bit about what it was like to work with Robert Rossen on Alexander the Great, and more importantly, since it's not listed in your credit list, George Cukor on the Chapman Report, both of which I thought you were superb.
I'm surprised that it's not listed. I'm sorry, because it was a very important film to me. And of course, Cukor was, as we all know, who's read the great women's director, and he was. And first of all, he gave me a part that nobody else would have done. Playing this kind of crazy nymphomaniac, American drunk, God knows what. In fact, he rather deliberately cast me as that because he said, God, I hate to say this word, he said I was a lady. I don't know if I am a lady, and I don't give a damn. But I think what he meant was I wasn't a slut. And so I brought something different to that role. But he was a very exciting director. And you would see him off screen, next to the camera, you know what I mean, living your role. He was acting away the 10. And it was very inspiring and a wonderful director. Robert Rossen, I don't know. I liked the film. I don't know how good it was. I think Richard was extraordinary, apart from his dreadful wig, as Alexander. And it's a period, Alexander the Great fascinates everybody. I don't remember much about Rossen. Robert Rossen, that is his name, Rossen, directing anybody. one-to-one. I don't remember much. I'm glad you liked it. I liked it too, quite.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good evening. Oh, this is working. Yes, it is working.
It is working.
I saw you in Duel of Angels with Vivian Lee. What are your memories of Vivian Lee, please?
Of the most beautiful woman I or anyone else has ever seen. She was very generous to me. She needn't have been. She was, well, we know, huge, humongous star. She was 40 odd, maybe 44. I was 26. She never made me feel that she was more experienced or superior, and also Laurence Olivier Productions produced it. I found her a wonderful colleague. I found her way of working interesting. And I would have thought for her a little bit constricting because she never changed anything. From the day of the first reading to the last performance, it was the same performance, the same gestures. It was all perfect, but it was must have been worked out very, very, very carefully beforehand. She herself, well, we know, we've all read about her. She was a very vulnerable woman. The side of her that I saw was gentle and kind.